Okay, today we're going to talk about a few different things having to do with Tevillas Keilim. That's our only connection. There's almost no connection between them, one and the next. Okay. I did that already.
Maybe I should just go back here.
I did mute already. Somehow they managed to unmute themselves. Okay, try again. Okay, so the first is drinking glasses at a Reformed temple, which is to say is two questions. The same question came up two different ways. The first one was, the question is something that's owned by a Jewish communal organization that's not religious. Do we have to cover those things? So the first one was, this was actually a CRC thing. The CRC caterer wanted to do an event at a Reformed temple, and they would use drinking glasses for cold, so it wasn't a Kashrus issue per se. And the question was, do they have to? The Reformed temple doesn't title the dishes, and the question was, did they have to title them to use them? And the variation of that was at a different hashgacha. It was giving a hashgacha on a nature retreat. They gave hashgacha there permanently, and it was run by a Jewish society promoting people's connecting with nature. Also not a religious organization. And the question was, that place, in fact, they did title their dishes, or at least they claimed to title their dishes. The question was whether that was required. So in both these cases, the organization, the place is Jewish by name, but because of the way things are these days, many of their members or board of directors or whoever you think is, so to speak, in charge or would be the thing are not Jewish. Okay, so it's not by mistake. There's not a one guy who happens to be there. It's a meaningful amount of people who are. So should we say is that now it's owned by a Jew and a non-Jew, and it's not chayv in Tevillas Keilim? Okay, if it's owned by Yidden, someone who's Jewish and not Jewish, something not chayv in Tevillas Keilim. Or should we say no, it's a Jewish organization. So a Jewish organization belongs to Jews, and therefore it needs to have tefillah. Okay, so one person who talked about this question said he thinks it's totally in Rajva. There's a Jewish Rajva, Shulchan Aruch, it's quoted in part in Shulchan Aruch, who says that if you have money that belongs to the tzibur, then it's as if it has no owner at all, and you could lend it out beribis. Okay, it's not owned by anybody. There's no issue of lending it beribis. So the thinking was, well, if it's nobody owns the Indian ribis, nobody owns it either, then no one owns it for Tevillas Keilim either. It just belongs to the tzibur. It doesn't belong to anybody, and therefore it's not having Tevillas Keilim.
So forget the fact that they're not allowed.
So so that would mean is if your local shtibel had it also, then it would also be the same thing. Any Jewish organization would be. So the first thing that strikes us, of course, that's not what people do, right? We know, or at least we think, it seemed like that the Jewish organizations that are owned by people who are all Jewish, they do title we think that they should title their stuff. And second is the Rashba himself says this is what I think is the truth, that it's considered hefker, and so it's as if it's hefker. Nobody, not only was with hefker, but there's no owner really, and therefore, but the Rashba himself says, even though I think that's correct, he says, but I'm not sure you should be samech on this for Indian a shayla v'deraisa. Indian lending money but ribis in a way that would be an issa deraisa. So if that, which is the way the Shulchan Aruch brings it, it's only for the Rabbanans you could do it. That means it's for Tevillas Keilim, for metal things, that's not going to help us. Rashba himself, who this idea was to be samech, maybe himself says it's not true. He's not willing to be samech if he's shayla of deraisa.
The issa of using it is also deraisa?
No, it's not. But the question is, so for the people, for the second case, which was the nature reserve, the nature, and then the other one is when we give hashgacha, we sort of take responsibility for. But again, that case was glass, it was a drabanan. But even so, the idea to say is we should automatically treat them as if they're. In this case, it wasn't so clear. Also, the I mentioned in passing, that's how the Shulchan Aruch says. The Chavos Daas thinks that no, really did not like the Rashba. It's like the Rosh who says really is have owner. So it would be a question like that. Okay. So, but it could be we could come to an answer to this from another din that also has nothing to do at first glance with Tevillas Keilim, and that is what happens. There's a machlokes in the Achronim. What happens if a person finds a metzia in shul? Okay, is he allowed to keep it or he's not allowed to keep it? Okay, so there's a Magen Avraham about it, and the Magen Avraham says that a shul is considered hektish. There's no yad for hektish. To be kind with chotzer, you need to have yad for whatever, not relevant to us. You have to have a yad to be kind, and therefore the shul can't be kind because the shul has no yad. The shul is hektish. The shul has no yad. Can't make any kinyanim on it, and therefore it's hefker. So somebody dropped it. Really, the shul would be kainit, The shul can't be kainit with kinyan chatzar. So mamela, when I walk by and I pick it up, it's completely. It came from hefker.
It's not mishtamer, it's altogether.
Correct. Makom, it's considered makom. It would be chatzar mishameres. Correct. But no,
If it is a case of chatzar mishameres, we have this question. If it's typically in a shul is not mishtamer.
So I don't know whether I have no idea. I can't answer that question. It's not relevant to me. But notice, if I found something in your house, I wouldn't say that I could keep it because you say you would kainit. If it fell into your house, okay. It's not. So before we get to the other shita, okay, I'm not sure what would the Magen Avraham say about if you say like this that it's considered hektish, that a thing like this belongs to hektish. So what would he say? Let's say the shul was kind of something with a real kinyan, not kinyan chutz. They did a regular kinyan, okay. What would he say now? What he say is it's hektish, and hektish maybe is not chayvin Tevillas Keilim at all. Maybe now get back to the Tevillas Keilim side of it. Okay, but he says no. Hektish is not chayvin. Maybe hektish is not chayvin. I have no idea whether hektish is chayvin Tevillas Keilim. What it's I have no idea. What did you say? I can't hear you.
So who made the sushta?
This is just a possibility. You know, I'm really coming for the other shita. There's the other possibility, which is of course in the spirit of today when we celebrate that Yerushalayim came back to the Jews. That the Yerushalmi says at the end of. How can I not say this when I'm reading this? Yerushalmi says at the end of the Beis Yosef at the beginning of Tevillas Keilim brings the Yerushalmi at the very end of Avodah Zarah, like the last words in Avodah Zarah, that says is the reason why we Tevillas Keilim is because it was Yatzu mitumas hanachi v'nichnasu l'kedushas Yisrael. That's what something be chayiv in Tevillas Keilim. So maybe coming to Hegdish is enough to be chayiv in Tevillas Keilim. You know, it already came into kedushas Yisrael. You know, there are actually not for today. Chuvas written about what happens when the Israeli army captures things. The army is already in Kedushas Yisrael. Anyhow, okay. So if you would say that something that's hektish it's not having Tevillas Keilim. Okay, crumpling. It's almost 10:15. Don't worry about it. If this would be true, we're going to get back to what we said before. We're going to all shuls. Okay, but a lot of the Achronim argue on this Magen Avraham, okay, and they say it's not true. He says the way the Kosher says, he says it's not true. He says shul is just a partnership of all the people who are the members of the board. I'm not sure exactly who the partners are, but I'll say the members. I'll say in the second why they're the members of the shul. So he says no, it's not. There's no such. It's not hektish, and they would have a kinyan. And the Nesiva says, well, it's a mix of hektish and shutfim. It's a mix of things together. And that would mean that would say to me, if it's a shutfis of all the members, so what happens when we come to our Reformed temple or to our this nature reserve, nature retreat? What should we say? It's a shutfis of its members. Okay, well the members of this thing, or the board of this thing, is some people who are Jewish and some people who are not, and then you'd be potter from Tevillas Keilim. Okay, in fact, there's an Ooni Yontif talking about the Shaila about the Metzia who says the same point. He says, you should know, I think that the shul is a partnership. Okay, like many of the are not like the Magen Avraham. I think it's a shutfis. He says, but even so the Magen Avraham is right anyhow. Okay, it is a shutfis, it's not hektish, but even so it's not koine. He says, why? He says, who are the shutfim in the shul? The shutfim in the shul is, let's say, all the members of the community. Okay, well the members of the community includes katanim and people who are charashim. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. People who are a cherish. I don't know. More than one person is a cherish, okay? And katanim, who they for sure can have a kinyan yad. So let it be a shutfis. The shul can't be kind of because some it is a shutfis. Some of the shutfim can't make the kinyan. So here he's telling you, the shul is a shutfis, but look at it, the shutfis based on who the members are, and some of those members are people who, in his case, can't be kind. In our case, wouldn't be chayv in tefillah, so it would be part of tefillah.
Most schools do not have ketanim or people who are chayrish as members.
So it's a good question. So I think he's looking at it not as who pays membership dues, but
that is the controlling factor of school in Chicago today. The It could be there's some areas more probably European that have like
Right, so-
belongs to the hectare of the community, but
Right, so you're correct. I think he's looking at a communal wise, and that the community is, or the variation of that would be is to say is when the cats became members of the shul, that means that the cat's family is members of the shul. It's not just you're the member.
yeah, but that's not the way it works in the United States of America. I
It's
don't
not-
think there's a single shul in the country
That what?
that works like that.
You're in other words, if the shul has an event and they say members pay less money for this event, do the cat's kids not pay
When
less
it
for
comes to
it?
ownership, it comes to voting rights, it comes to all that. It's referring to the
It
member.
comes to
and it
control and being
comes
able to
to
make
control
decisions.
and bias,
Of
which
course,
is
it's
a
people
perk
that are
that
about
you
it
can-
das.
which
Anybody's
is-
about das.
Bias, when it comes to bias, it's referring to the paying members who have rights in the shul.
Right, but say members paid by families, right? And so is your wife not a member? Is only you're the member because you wrote the check instead of your wife? They said no, the family.
Bias, I would say so.
You think so? Okay, I'm not sure. So well, I'll tell you a variation of what you said, which was my next thing I was going to say, which was, I asked Rabbi Binyamin Weiss what he thought about this question from Montreal. I asked him what he thought about this question, and he said he essentially said agree with me, but with a variation. He says is all those people who are talking about things that are found in a shul is the way shuls used to be. He says the shul was everyone in town got together. We built the shul, and that's what we davened. That's what we had. We had some communal organization. He says but nowadays shuls are corporations. They're set up as a corporation, as it's a nonprofit, but it's set up as a nonprofit of whoever set it up, who was the board and this and that.
Versus a trust that would own the property to service the community would be more of
Okay,
servicing the
that's an interesting way of looking at it.
trust.
He didn't say that, but okay. So now, so he
A
says it.
corporation who's just
So he's
voting members.
so he said that now Memonoshach. He said Memonoshach. He says some people view corporations in all kinds of dinim as what the legal status is. It's like an independent entity. It doesn't belong to anybody. It's like it's an independent thing. He says if that would be true, then it wouldn't be chayv tefillah. Down on bayidin. He says, and if it's you say no, a corporation is really just owned by its partners, then back to what I said, which was some of those partners are not Jewish, and Mamela, it wouldn't be chayv tefillah. So in the end, he thought it was not chayv tefillah. So I said to him, so what about a regular shul? A shul with owned by Jewish people.
Actually, only Jews.
Owned by Jews. Could you imagine that, right? So he says Taka, he thinks that either because of the question about how to treat corporations, either they should tovel things without a bracha, or he said is they should have a person buy this stuff for the shul, tovel it, and then give it to the shul. The gabbai who buys it should buy it as if himself, and then tovel it, and then give it to the shul.
Nobody said that because it's tanim, we don't have to do it because it's tanim.
He didn't say it. Not because Tevillas Keilim. Tanam Chayim Tevillas Keilim also.
You just said that. I thought you just said the butter, but okay.
No, Tanam Chayim. I'm saying the non-Jewish people. Tanam would be part of.
Russian and
Can't make a kinyan. They can't make a kinyan on the aveda that was lost in the shul.
Okay,
That's what it is.
So the shaila boils down to is shutfus, right? You got a shutfus of either an amin.
Yeah, well, which is part of from Tevillas Keilim. So I'm saying we should look at it now as a shutfus.
I'm confused.
Shutfus is not a shaila. Shutfus is
Shutfus
body
is
part.
pashut.
Yes.
So then what's the shaila here?
The question is, there are people who thought it's a Jewish organization. If it's a Jewish organization, it's Chayim and Tevillas Keilim.
That would be
But
if
it's
there's a
shutfus.
trust. That would be true if it was a trust that was the mission was for the Jewish organ to service the Jewish community. Then you'd have that argument.
But here,
As long as it's just a corporation,
which it is.
a nonprofit corporation, then it's a regular shutfus of the members.
So that you all agree with me. That's great. I'm telling you there are people who didn't think that way. So
Well,
that,
because it was bringing riots and what the
and by now you all think what I said to you, and I'm okay with that. I'm telling you that there are people out there who don't think like that. So I'm not telling you their name. There are people who don't think like that. Okay.
People hold that what? Israel.
It's Jewish. It's a Jewish place.
Jewish state.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. As Jewish as that.
Correct.
But
No, because the Jewish state Taka is a trial. The attack it is. Anyhow, okay.
so some people accept it's psak, that it's butter because
Yes.
of the name as well.
Yes.
There's a question of like, should you be saimich on this and not do, what the mitzvah requires because they wrongly have goyim involved in the thing.
What does that mean? Wait a second. What happens if you really were shutted for somebody? Let's say you and your neighbor.
They come to us to do kosher.
Yes.
Okay.
And so you want to teach them, properly what you're supposed to do with Keilim, and that's to be toilet. That's the problem.
No.
You keep cheating.
Not if you're.
So don't make a bracha.
not-
Don't make a bracha. The proper thing is to be Tevillas Keilim. Well,
So I don't know,
goy, so you don't have.
Okay, so you should know. You should know.
You shouldn't have goyim in
But then the
appointed
people-
member.
If a member
over
takes
the
it
shul.
home, if a Jewish member takes it home when they don't need it anymore, he has a chiyuv tefillah now.
Okay,
He's gonna think it was titled.
I
You mean machshel the guy?
Not be much. It's a Tevillas.
No, you're
Doesn't
titling
work.
it, but it's titling it when it has a shutz for the guy
Doesn't
power.
work.
Tefillah
Uh-huh.
does nothing. So when he takes it home at the end of the day,
Okay,
he's
it
like,
reminds
"That's
me.
what he has with tefillah."
There
He's gonna think he was potter.
was a company that made matzah.
That's a good point.
There was a company that made matzah that was owned by non-Jewish people. So on the side of the boxes they wrote, "The laws of Challah are observed." They weren't mafresh Challah. They could say we're mafresh Challah, but we didn't say that people have time. They said the laws of Challah are observed. We do what we're supposed to do. So if it feels can we follow the rules also? We follow the rules, and the rules are don't take. Okay, now some shorter things. We'll get to one longer things if we have time. Okay, a vape pen. Okay, so of course, seriously, will tell you not to vape. The question is, the guy's doing it anyhow, and he has what?
That's fascinating. It's a reusable clean. We're calling it a chila.
It's non-disposable.
He has a non-disposable refillable glass vape pen, and he wants to be chayv tefillah. For the first, I first thought was you chayv tefillah if you cook in a kli or if you eat with a kli. Okay, so we consider tasting to be considered a form of eating. So the guy's tasting it, so he's eating. So as eating it, so it's like a bowl for him to eat out of. Okay, so that's why I first thought that he should be chayv. I first thought it was chayv tefillah. But then someone said no. He said two reasons why I didn't think it was correct. Okay, first was when the what we call the vape juice is inside the container, it's not royal achila. Okay, we talked about this when we talked about vaping. Okay, it's not royal achila. It's you couldn't drink that. It's dangerous, and you wouldn't be able to drink it. He said, but it only becomes plausible that you could taste it when you turn into a vapor, when you turns into a mist, and the person sucks it in. So the thing itself is actually doing nothing. It's not holding food. It doesn't become food till it, so to speak, leaves it. So that was one reason why this person thought that it shouldn't be chayv Tevillas Keilim. And the second one,
So instead, it's making food.
what did you say?
Then the glass thing is helping make the food.
I mean, so the little bit at the end, the tip, the part that makes it into the whole thing as it's like the whole thing as a thing. The whole thing as a whole is making it into food. It's taking something that's not food and
I don't
turning
know
it
what
into
these things
food.
look like. I don't know how they. This part and that part, so I just.
Okay, that's a fair question. Maybe okay, that's what to think about. And the second is that really when I said to you that we consider tasting to be like eating, we only consider tasting like eating. That's really not that's not the right. So that's midrabanan because of chashash shami yavel ochlai. Okay, tasting is really min haTorah is really mutter. To put something in your mouth and spit it out is really mutter. It's only awesome shami yavel ochlai. So like in like a tinus, it might not be considered eating. This goes over to places where it's not considered eating. So to say that I'm using this container to eat with is maybe pushing it, because it's not really eating. It's really only sham yavel achlei. It's only midrabanan because it's eating. Maybe that was pushing it. Okay.
These people are not Thailand, right?
Well, most people are disposable. Most people have disposables.
Oh.
But if you have a refillable and it's glass, it would have to be glass or metal also. But
Or metal.
right, glass or metal.
Is
Then
that
then
typically what they're made of?
I have no idea.
So do we have a psak on this upstairs?
No, we don't have an official
I guess
answer.
it's corrosive. and It's mostly made out of glass.
I have whatever. Who knows? Okay, let's see if we have time to finish up. Okay, let's go. Okay, the next one was a Ooni pizza oven. Okay, so I thought about putting a picture of it. Didn't have time for this, and that is it's a little pizza oven. It's actually would be really good for making matzah in. That's the truth, because it's really hot. It's portable. It's like nothing. It's like the size of a really big microwave. And the floor of it is made of something called corderite. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, which is a stone. It's not chayv tefillah. The floor. It's not something that chayv. It's not a material that's chayv tefillah. But the chamber is metal. Okay, so
Powered by what?
Propane.
propane. Okay. So the Ramah says. That's actually a good question. Okay. Okay. The Ramah says.
That's the thing, so-
The Ramah says that a pot cover needs to be tovel. He says, but I for sure don't know how to pronounce this word. Cloche. Okay, it's the cover of a Dutch oven. Okay, Rama doesn't use that word. That's just what the word is for the cover, which is when you bake bread. You bake bread in in a container, like in a pot, with a cover on top of it. He said that is not chayv tefillah. So that's not chayv tefillah. Only the cover of a pot is. So how should we look at the chamber that keeps the heat in? It sort of insulates it to make it be able to cook in it. Okay, you're not cooking on like an open flame.
It's like an oven.
What did you say?
It's an oven.
It's sort of like an oven, but it's built to be like that. So some people thought that it was like a pot. I didn't think so. I thought that it's only when it has to be like mamash, like hold in the zayas, the heavy amount of what's called hevel hakadera inside of it. Like you cook a pot of spaghetti, there's all that steam is inside of it. So the cover is considered to be like part of the cooking process, as opposed to when it's just broader, just keeping things from the outside from coming in. It's more like the pot.
That's how Mayor Hildesheim described it as the purpose of the cover is to keep the steam inside.
Keep the steam inside, but that happens when you cook in your oven also. What happens when you cook in your?
It's to keep it heat, not steam.
No, steam, specifically steam.
Not an oven.
What?
It's supposed to an oven.
Oh, an
No.
oven, right. It's not to cook in.
Right, so I wasn't, but there the Rama says you're not chayv in Tevillas Keilim, but that cover. So the steam is not enough. Just keeping in some steam is not enough. It has to do more serious amount of participation, so to speak. So I thought it was not okay. And now, actually, to him, there's a question that came up when we went to him, which was about a scoring blade. Okay, what is a scoring blade? So a scoring blade is when you make bread. They make slices on top of the bread, and it supposedly breaks up. What does it do? It breaks up the skin of the dough, and it helps it expand better. It helps gases get out, and so it's supposed to make better bread. It makes it look pretty. When it's still in the dough form, you slice it, and then when it bakes, it comes out. It bakes different. Looks different when it comes out.
You make like notches on the dough.
Like slits, like one in each direction, maybe like an X or something like that. And when the bread bakes, it doesn't just have a slit; it like opens up. When you see a picture, you don't understand what I'm talking about.
It breaks over there.
It breaks, but it doesn't just crack like this. It cracks open wide, and it gives a certain look to it, and it makes it taste better also. Yes or no? So how do they do that? They use disposable razor blades, okay, which you would never use because they're meant for shaving your face. But they use it for this. You could use it on the back of your head, maybe. Okay, and you do it with a special tool.
It's been a while.
Okay, you take it. Thank you. You take this razor blade and you put it into something called a bread lam. Okay, it's spelled Lame, but it's pronounced lam. It seems, which is meant exactly for this. You take the razors and you don't shave your beard with it, but instead it holds the razor and you slice the bread like that. Okay. So the question whether the chayv in Tevillas Keilim.
So he says it's disposable.
They're disposable. So I'm going to say that in one second. Before I tell you that, just to tell you like this: if it was chayv in Tevillas Keilim, it would be really difficult to do. Okay, because it's sharp on all edges. Okay, you touch it, you cut your finger. As soon as you touch it, you almost touch it, you cut your fingers. Okay, so imagine trying to get these into the mikvah. I mean, it was like you can imagine what would be going on in there. Okay,
How do they get it into the thing?
you could get onto the. I'm not saying it's impossible.
You crack it in the wrapper and then you pull it out. So,
Is that what it is?
or these ones they don't crack, but they're double sided. They're made to split. They're really two blades in one, depending how you use them. There's ways they handle them, but they're individually wrapped, and you buy them by like a lot because they're disposable. They want this super sharp.
Right. They're not sharp enough. No, and
Why does it to be so super sharp to cut a dough for crying out loud?
whatever reason, and as you know from shchita, that when the sharper it is the more brittle it is. Also, okay, that's the chiddush of new knives from like 200 years ago that can be sharp and also tough. Also, is very difficult. Usually, sharp and brittle go together. So you use it a couple of times, and by the time you use it after a couple loads, you do a couple of breads, and then you throw it out because it's not sharp anymore. Okay, you lost the thing. Okay, so the first reason why it shouldn't need tefillah. So all I was just saying was that it would be really hard to tevel if you had to. So thankfully, we're going to say you don't have to. The first is because it's disposable. It's disposable. Okay, the first is that it's disposable, and we assume that things that are disposable are not chayv in Tevillas Keilim.
Is there a car for that?
What do you say? Is there a makar from it? Yeah, because it comes. The makar is because the dinim of Tevillas Keilim are converted to the dinim of tumas Keilim, and Ramesh says in tumas Keilim things that are disposable are not chayv Tevillas, are not makabel tuma, and therefore he says so. For now, other people don't agree with that. Other people think we don't compare Tevillas Keilim to tumas Keilim, but if you do, Ramesh says you'll see that in Tumas Keilim these things would not be chayv tefillas. Then of course I couldn't. I have no idea. He tells me I believe him. I mean, he has Mariah, but I believe. Okay. Anyhow, okay. The second is the razors. These razors, their only food use is with raw dough. Okay, you don't use them on cooked food. You would never use this razor to cook food. Okay, so the Machaber and the Rama speak about whether you chayv and Tevillas Keilim for something that's only for raw dough, for things that are not cooked. Because the Machaber says it's not chayv and Tevillas Keilim at all. If the only thing you do with it is with raw, and the Rama says it's chayv. He says toiv l'blei bracha. He's talking about a sakin sheshchita. Toiv l'blei bracha. What?
He's remembering now.
I thought it was a touch.
You could theoretically use it for chocolates and stuff like that, but it's pretty unusual.
Okay, so I'm getting to 1,000 1 second. So that's the Ramah says toiv b'bracha. Then a minute later, the next case about the redler for making matzah, the Ramah doesn't say anything. The Machaber says also you don't toiv, and the Ramah doesn't say anything. So the Taz says fuad, the same thing. Anything raw, the Ramah says it's better to toiv without bracha, and the Shach says no. The difference is that the sachen shel shchita you could use for something else. You could cut an apple with it also if you wanted to. It has a use for food that's edible, as opposed to the redler for the dough. There's nothing for matzah. You can't do anything else with it. That's the only function is with raw, so you don't toivel it. So over here, we thought then in Hilchos Tevillas Keilim that to follow the shach, especially to the Rabbanan, it's a toivel b'la bracha. It's like Ramah is being super careful. So that was another reason that this thing also it only has use for dough, for raw dough. Okay, I'm going to try to get the other two things quickly. One is really quick. And the next one, it's a sprouting jar. Okay, what's a sprouting jar? Okay, sprouting jar is you have people want to eat sprouts, like Brussels sprouts, okay, broccoli sprouts, okay, which is sprouts are when the plant just starts to grow. So before you have that whole plant, you get just like a little, looks like a piece of grass growing out of the ground. So people want to eat those. And the way you eat them is you take the seeds, you soak them in water, and they start to sprout. Okay, so the question was, so people buy a sprouting jar. It's a jar, glass jar, in which you put the water, I think just water, and you soak the seeds in them, and the things start to sprout. And then when they sprouted enough that you wanted to, then you eat it. Okay, now you've grown your whatever you want to, and you eat it. Okay, so the question is the sprouting jar making your food edible? It's like a pot. Okay, what do? You put something into it, and when you come back a week later, and now you have something to eat. So you chayv and tefillah for that thing. Like let's say you use a jar to make pickles. Okay, you took cucumbers, put them into the jar with whatever you put in with it, and come out a few days later and you have pickles. So should that be chayv and tefillah? Or that's what I first thought. Someone else said to me, nah. He said to me, nah. He says the seeds disappear and the sprouts just come like from no place. They just like come. So it just I said even so, but still it's coming. I don't care. It's making for magic. I don't care.
So what was he saying? It's not really using the jar.
It's like coming from no place, right? Like as if the jar is not part of the.
Use the jar to make it come from nowhere.
Okay.
So I said somebody planted seeds in a glass pot.
That's so he said to me, so would you chayv and tefillah? I said, well, that's the same question. I don't care. Well, you're not scaring me, you know? I mean, most people don't have glass pots, but what's the difference? And it's used to make something edible, right? You start off with.
Made the whole thing. Made it edible.
I'm just using it as a dogma. What about his example? I planted seeds and I grew cucumbers. Okay, so it would be the same question. The question that came to us was about a sprouting jar. That was the person who wanted to know. So, okay, our last thing.
Oh, what's the answer?
I thought it's high in Tevillas Keilim. I thought we don't have an official. It says this requires further consideration. But I thought that it made food edible, right? Yesterday you couldn't eat it. Today you can eat it. So okay.
Oh, same thing. What about the pickle jar? It was edible before you.
So pickle jar, I'm going to mention in a second. I'm not really going to, but it'll make you feel better. I'll tell you. I'm going to mention in a second. Okay. The last, I wasn't planning on saying about it.
What does it mean? Was edible before? It's not just that it was edible before.
Yeah, I'm about to talk. I'm about to talk about that. That question. I'm about to talk about. I'm about to talk about that. Okay. So. Okay. When we have a kli that's made of two things. Okay, it's made. Some parts of it need tefillah, parts of it don't need tefillah. So the short version of what we do is if the parts that are of a material, let's say of metal, have food contact and they're not decorative, okay, they're functional to the kli and they have food contact, then we tovel them. Okay, potentially without a bracha, but if it has food contact, the parts that are the metal parts have food contact and they're not just decorative, then they're chayv and Tevillas Keilim. Okay, so the question here is about a seltzer maker. The whole machine is plastic, so the plastic part of it is not chayiv in Tevillas Keilim. Would not be mechayiv in Tevillas Keilim. But the question is, the wand, the part that goes into your bottle, the tip of it is the end of it is metal and it's functional. It's important for the functioning of the machine. So is it chayiv in Tevillas Keilim?
So saving is cured, just a little metal.
Yeah.
tip.
Same question. Yes, correct. The question here was about a seltzer maker. It's more particular. You hear what I'm going to say in a minute is more particular to the seltzer maker. Yes, the same question. So the reason to think that it would not be chayiv in Tevillas Keilim is because there's a pretty well-known truth from Moshe about a pop-up toaster, and he says it doesn't need Tevillas Keilim. Even though it cooks the food, makes the toast from bread into toast, he said, nah, that's nothing. Making something from bread into toast, basically it was edible beforehand. You're not doing anything meaningful to it, and therefore it shouldn't be chayiv in Tevillas Keilim. Okay, so if you just heard what's that all I told you about Ramosha? Now not everybody agrees with him, but if that's all I told you about Ramosha says, then you would say is over here also. Okay, so what did it do? It made water into seltzer. Maybe that doesn't mean anything. So, but I think if we dig in a little deeper, we'll see that that's not correct. And that's good. Where did Ramosha come up with this thing that if you make bread into toast, that doesn't count? That doesn't mean anything. When I say you toasted the bread in it. So he says it's because he makes a dig in the Gemara. The Gemara gives a list of the different things that are chayiv in Tevillas Keilim, and it says a pot and a kettle are chayiv in Tevillas Keilim. So the chiddush of saying that a pot is chayiv in Tevillas Keilim, meaning even though you don't eat in a pot, you only to cook the food in it, it's still chayiv in Tevillas Keilim. That's why it has to say that a pot is chayiv in Tevillas Keilim. He says, once I told you that a pot is chayiv in Tevillas Keilim, why does it have to say that a kettle is chayiv in Tevillas Keilim? A kettle is just a kind of a pot. Okay, just another. Once I know that pots are chayiv, even though you don't eat out of them, then kettles are just another kind of a pot. So he says the reason is because in order to be a pot is only chayiv in Tevillas Keilim when it does something significant. So you would think that a kettle is not chayiv in Tevillas Keilim because all it does is make water hot. Big deal, made water from regular water to hot water. Nah, you think that's not a big deal. So the Gemara is telling you is no. Making water hot is also kosher because hot water is significantly different than plain water. People want to drink tea; they don't want to drink just plain water. It's significantly different to have hot water. So the chiddush is that that's also considered to be a meaningful difference, and you chayiv in Tevillas Keilim. And Ramesh says so. Therefore, toast, in his way of looking at it, toast is not so different from bread, and therefore that's not enough. But we see from the Gemara saying that you have to be significant. Okay, so that's fine. It's a judgment call now on the toast, that the toast is not significantly different than the bread that it came from. But the seltzer is in my mind, is not the same as toast. Okay, seltzer means people go out and people are buying seltzer. Okay, this one is flavor. But people pay money for seltzer and they have a seltzer machine just to make that. I guess they have a toaster machine to make toast also. They have toast also. But maybe I'm judging it correctly. To me, it's just like making water into hot water is making water into seltzer. Maybe I'm a big seltzer drinker. Maybe that's why I'm biased over here. Is different than just making bread into toast. And it's not that automatically, if the thing was edible beforehand, if I have cucumbers, and in your example, I make cucumbers into pickles, just because it was edible beforehand doesn't mean I didn't do something with it when I cooked it in here also. If I made something meaningful, so pickles are big different from cucumbers, so I think everybody would then say, come on, that's that jar that I use it is chayiv in Tevillas Keilim. It's the way you make it. So to me, seltzer would be the same thing, but yes, you could disagree on it.